If you're trying to talk, I can't hear you, unfortunately. But I believe you should be able to hear me. I'm gonna do a coaching session right now. With that being said, I'm gonna change my stream title.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, how are you doing?
Pretty good. On mute.
So where are you physically located right now?
Argosville? Just north of Fargo.
Okay. Nice.
I work in Fargo.
I like Fargo. I was
So you're
there.
moving to the cities?
I want to, but I might be moving many other places. I'm not sure yet where I'll be going exactly. But Minneapolis would be like my dream location. So. Alright, let's hear about your StarCraft career. Size StarCraft. Or can I call you by your real name?
I would prefer just screen name.
Username? Wait, what'd you say?
Size fine. Size StarCraft.
Okay, cool. Yeah, tell us about your StarCraft. Like,
What do you want to know?
how long have you been playing? How many games a week do you play?
I've been playing for 10 years.
Okay.
How many games? I pretty much play every day, but a lot of times I mess around on.
You play like the arcade?
Yeah, the arcade, or just started playing co-op recently. Pretty fun. But
What's your favorite arcade
back in
game? Zone Control?
I played some Zone Control. You know, all the different tug of wars. Stuff like that. I think it's amazing the arcade, like all the different games they have.
I like the Brood War arcade a lot more.
That
I felt like games were a lot more creative, and there wasn't like a lot to learn about them. You just kind of went with it.
learning
But
curve on some of these games is insane. I
yeah,
think that's why a lot of them don't make it, because you got to play it for 2 weeks before you know what's going on. Back into ones.
yeah. Okay, so you play Protoss, right? You have a hard time hearing me?
Here, you good? Can you?
There might be a problem with your microphone, because I feel like sometimes you're like speaking, but it's not going through. Or maybe you're just very shy.
No, I'll change the sensitivity on it.
Cool.
That a little better.
It should be fine. Like when you do talk, it sounds just fine.
Okay.
So I think it's just like sometimes your mic doesn't pick it up. But you play Protoss, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a channel that I can meet you in?
Well, let's see. Did I do that?
Type /join and then PSI. Psi. Wasn't there like a Psi esports team or something that, or isn't there?
Or is it called Psystorm? Psystorm Gaming or something? Or is that something
No,
different?
maybe I'm thinking of something different. If you want to go ahead and invite me to a party. So you're Diamond 1. So I'm sure you're shooting for Masters. Oh, you've been Masters before.
Usually bounce between like high diamond, low masters. Like right when I get into masters and I go back down, and then it like gets easy and I go back up. I don't know. It's like if I get to like diamond 2, I just like crush everybody, you know, and then I get into masters. Like I don't know. It's like a swing.
Oh wow,
you know?
you were Diamond in 2010. You've played this game before I did.
Really?
That's a lot. That's a lot of passion. And you hit Masters for the first time in 2012. Seems like a very interesting. We've probably played before. Little do you know.
Played each other? I doubt that.
I would
Played
think
a
it's.
lot in Wings of Liberty.
But I was Diamond for about a month. So, and I was also Masters around the same time as you. Hmm.
Suppose I probably didn't know about you back then.
Maybe, for all I know, you've set a record against me and you have my number right now. Maybe you've beat 2 games off me. And I'm still waiting for some long lost revenge that I just somehow conjured out of nowhere. Oof. You want to host a replay?
Yeah, sure.
What would you say, like, your greatest strength and your greatest weaknesses?
I feel a lot stronger in like the mid to late game, going into macro, decision making. Then attacking, doing stuff like that. Weakness is pretty much Terran. I hate Terran with a passion. I'm really bad at like catching drops, and like I just get picked apart by Terran like mines.
That sounds like every Diamond and Masters player's nightmare, to be honest. It's a very reoccurring theme.
Like I feel like I'll stop it, and then all of a sudden I look over at my other base, and it's like dead. It's like, I don't know.
You said you felt strong in the mid to late game. What would you attribute?
Later I feel okay.
What would you attribute that to? Like, why do you?
I feel more comfortable with like, if the game's like in like full macro, like we're all on 3-4 bases and we're going, then I feel a lot better doing that. But and I just lose before that point. Like if it gets late enough against Terran, I feel like I'll just win.
Okay.
PvP is just a crapshoot. I have no idea.
PvP?
I probably need a better build. I always lose to Phoenix, and I can't. I try to build Phoenix, but then I never like get it more out than they do. So I feel like it's maybe my build's just bad.
Well, let's go over some replays, and then
I don't know.
I'll do some investigations into why you probably feel like you have to like dress up your units because none of them listen to you.
When some games I win, like against Terran, like it still feels kind of gross.
Yeah.
It's like, let's see.
Well, late game PvT is very A movie when it's lower MMR. It's like you just built the army and you're like, well, I'm gonna attack you with 200 supply against your 140.
The one I just played, how about that? I just played this game like while I was waiting for you.
Cool.
Carrier has arrived.
Ah, Keenan got. Welcome. Thanks for the 8th. That's your 8th gifted sub. That's insane. If you want coaching as well, I can hook you up.
To promote you to host, can you control the camera or no?
Yeah, that'd be preferred. Because I need to like identify a lot of things and go through things. It'd be hard to like watch the game through your eyes. No offense.
So I was wondering if you can control it because you want to look at certain things, I'm sure.
Yep. Just so you know, like, to get like the full effects of a coaching session, it's better to go through like 3 of the same matchups in a row just to see what consistencies you have.
Okay.
Do you know where you get your build from? Or did you just kind of make it up as you go along?
I've been doing like trying to do like a gasless opening against Terran.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone told me about it. I think I got crushed by a.
Is this your own creation?
No, not the very very opening. Like past like. Then I don't really have like a plan into mid game, I guess, which isn't great.
So you just kind of do things.
I get to the point where I'm like maybe building Robo or building a Twilight, and then after that I do things. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Welcome to the stream of Evil Virus. Make sure you give a big warm thank you to Keenan Got. Where are we at?
Glory.
You don't use location hotkeys?
I don't use any location hotkeys, no.
Actually, I want to go back to right here real fast. Okay, we need to create some structure immediately. So firsthand, you always want to take your Nexus at 20, regardless of what anyone tells you. It's the most efficient versus Terran to take it at 20. So
Is that what I do here, or do I do
no,
it
you did it at 19. Like it looks like you're like kind of just doing something you've been doing for years, or like doing something your own way. If you want to keep doing it your own way, you're more than welcome, and we can kind of work with it. But if you want to like have a very strong opening, then we need to think more towards the timings of our first few buildings, because generally your standard opening versus Terran will look like Pylon Gate, Gas, Nexus, or it could be Pylon Gate, Gas, Cyber, and the Cyber goes down at about 20, and so does the Nexus for each. Well, the Cyber goes down right when the Gateway finishes anyhow.
Could
But
avoided or built another probe first? I built it a little early, huh?
Yeah, but then this gas is very late. Like, you don't want to... You're not going to have, like, any gas for your opening. So, like, any kind of tech that you wanted to go, whether it was Robo, whether it was Stargate, or even Twilight, is going to be very delayed right now. And those are kind of some of the things that we need to get a map presence. We need to be able to think about how we can be harvesting time as a resource sooner than later. And what I mean by that, like, say, if we have, like, an observer on his side of the map 15 seconds sooner, and we see him move out, we know a lot more of the wind, or we have more variety for wind conditions that we can put for ourselves. So, for instance, we see him move out, then we warp in an extra set of units, and we can take hold of the middle of the map. So that essentially stalls out the game. You removed his win condition, and then you put yourself in a position where you should be ahead, and then you have a few more routes that you can go down, essentially, for how you respond. So essentially, like, right now, we're creating our Hearthstone deck, right? So imagine a Gateway and a Cyber. Have you played Hearthstone? I should ask you this first.
Yeah, I've played a little bit.
Okay, so your Gateway, your Cyber, and your first Nexus are like 1 to 2 cost cards. Imagine that. Like, you always need them in an arena, right? And you want to be able to get ahead, so you generally want them earlier on in the game. and as fast as possible. And then this isn't working how I wanted it to, my example. but still, we're still building a arena deck. And then imagine like a Robo, a Stargate, and a Twilight are like 4 to 6 cost cards. And then we can only have like a few of them or something.
No.
And then so on.
I get those cards too early.
Yeah. No, my example was awful. Erase everything I just said.
Is Robo too early, or is just the whole build bad, so it doesn't matter?
The Robo is kind of late, I would say, actually. Ignore what I said. Regardless, we need a structure. Just like a Hearthstone deck needs a structure. There's my analogy.
Okay.
So 20 Nexus, Cyber, after Gateway. So you could either do Nexus first or Cyber. And then let's keep moving with replay. So then your robotics facility would have been a little bit faster. And then we could be sending out observers. Do you ever play any unranked? Did you hear me?
No, I don't.
Oh, maybe it's my microphone. I asked if you played any unranked at all.
I only play ranked.
Okay. It looks like you're setting up like an aggressive attack. Do you want to like take map presence on his side of the map, or do you want to like slow him down? How is this working for you? Like, what's your plan?
Oh, what I'm doing right now? I usually prepare right now to get hit with like what he's doing. Cyclones usually like is what I lose to if I don't have like a early immortal. And so I kind of build a shield battery probably earlier than I need to, expecting he's gonna hit me with a.
So we see the Cyclone. What do we actually all see with the depth?
I'm not sure if I see the Cyclone or not. Do I? Yeah.
So something we need to like put in our structure, right, is when this adept comes over to his side of the map, we get our scouting information based upon what we see on the ramp, right? So say your adept goes up there and it sees the factory with the reactor. We know a lot more than just seeing a single Cyclone, because the factory could be behind the barracks that has a reactor on the barracks, and he could be going a lot of Marines while going into like a Starport Widow Mine drop, or like Cyclone drop, or like anything that can be very weird. But by seeing the reactored factory, we know that he wants to play aggressive with Cyclones. And we can also learn a lot from about right here. When we scout here with this probe, when it first comes in, I think you scouted after Pylon. Yeah, this is after Pylon. Is it not? No, it's after Gateway. Okay, so this is gonna be...
And then I leave.
Yeah, this is guess first. So that means Cyclone pushes Cloaked Banshees are of higher probability. Like, they don't necessarily have to be the case, but they're going to be much higher, held to a much higher regard. And you don't need this many gateways. You can hold with 3. Actually, you're kind of burdening yourself by adding these extra gateways by... So if you just left with 3 gateways, right? That's extra units. That's an extra immortal. If you build your gateways at the proper timing, so you need to plan it, right? So you need to know what time these gateways need to go down, so you can have a set of warp-in units before his units get to your side of the map. And if you can do that, you'll be much better off. So let's see. If we click on a probe, it takes 46 seconds to build a gateway, right? So if we were to time this, if we know the amount of time it takes his units across the map, So imagine our depth goes in. At about. So right now, if we went straight to where the factory was, we see the reactor on the factory, right? And then immediately we know that we need 2 additional gateways to deal with this. And let's see if that's enough time. So that was at 320. We need 45 seconds. Bam. There's your 2 gateways. You have an extra set of warp-ins, so you'd have 3 additional stalkers right now already being warped in. You'd have also, let's see if you could have had a second immortal ult. If you want to play extra safe. Well, you probably could have had a second immortal ult as well. Generally though, like, it's hard to get an immortal ult for this push. Or like 2 immortals. I'm usually holding it with 1 immortal if I open Robo. Just because I need to like make probes and stuff, I don't want to cut too much. And even after all that, it didn't really cost you that much. You're still ahead in the game. But you really have like no transition. Like you've kind of set yourself to all in without any upgrades. If you're gonna play like a charge lot style, you need to have like a lot of upgrades for it to be a lot more efficient. So these 2 gateways could have been 2 forges that were at the top of your base.
Okay.
And then at about 5 minutes after you immediately hold this push, you should be taking your 3rd. And you do. You're good.
Be too much about that cyclone push because I've lost to it like 100 times before I was like, all right, I'm not gonna die to this anymore.
And now, I think your observer's getting to his side of the map. We didn't see anything. You have to go in a little bit deeper. Like, you can make the confirmation that it looks like it's a 5 racks right now, which means he's all landing very hard.
Yeah, I was kind of spotting for a command center. I wanted to see if there was one on the high ground.
Yep, but it's also safe just to say that you can go in a little bit. If he doesn't have Marines there, go in deeper. Because you need to see... Like, there's many ways to get confirmation of something, right? Like, you go in there and you see 5 racks, and all of a sudden you begin your production immediately. But say you don't get that information confirmed, and you're just sitting back here with the observers, spending more time with it, having to fiddle around with it, then you're taking away from things you could be doing at home.
Right.
Because, like, he could technically still be making his command center at the other base right there, and you haven't had any information for it. Also, if you know he's going siege tank pushes, you need to think of how you can set yourself up for movement more. So removing these rocks would have been very beneficial for you, because he could set those siege tanks up behind those rocks and just drop right there, and all of a sudden it's very hard for you to engage without taking constant damage. It puts you on a timer.
Those rocks is your recommendation.
Yep. If it's siege tanks. Oh, you stormed your own army.
I know, that was terrible. Usually I'm pretty good at storm. I like storm.
So you clean that up. I want to see how you engaged. So right now you have 1 control group. Okay. And you seem to be lacking a lot of mechanical skill sets that you haven't like attempted to practice. Have you ever tried using 2 control groups for spellcasters?
Yeah, so I use 2, and then I'll use 3 if I have. I want to use like only having the temps. I'll just put them into
the temps.
Like if another spellcaster, I'd put it on 3, or I'll put like my dropship on 3.
Would you normally take this engagement with 2 control groups?
It's no, just 1.
You'd usually just take this with 1?
If I only have 1 spellcaster, I'll have it in my main army.
Okay. If you're used to like splitting them off later in the game, you might as well just do it starting now. The way you have to think about it is you go in here, right, with your High Templar, and you're just using one control group and you have no way to bring the High Templar to the back. They're going to get sniped a lot more often. And that can be very costly. Like, it's 150 gas gone every game. Like, you can only replace one right now if you wanted to. And by having, like, 2 for your main army, 3 for your High Templar, each time you engage and storm, you can press 3, right-click away, and then click 2 again, and attack, move forward. It just kind of sets them further back and further back if you don't want them to die. Or
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep. It's a very good practice. And if you struggle doing that, then you just go into like a use map settings game and you just practice the movement of your units using 2 control groups. And it's also how I'd recommend learning location hotkeys. It's not necessarily mandatory that you learn location hotkeys, but I do highly recommend it. What location hotkeys do for you is it gives you a consistent center of location on the game. So each game that you go into, you kind of develop a sense of spatial intelligence for how much you need to move your mouse to move it to each side of the screen, or like where you place things. So for instance, if you always place a pylon right next to your nexus, you know it's going to be there, and you can move your mouse there and build things or whatever. There's also benefits to playing the way that you do, in the sense that you get a lot of scrolling the mouse practice, or like using the mouse wheel or moving to the right to change screens. That's also like a unique skill set that can be beneficial in big engagements. So for instance, if you're having to manage a 5 screen wide engagement, say you have a group of units. Can you see my pings? Are my pings showing up for you? Hello?
Can you not hear me?
No.
I'm picking up
You're picking up now.
your pings.
Oh, you can see them?
They're all showing up in the base.
Okay, you know where like the ramp is, where the gold is? And where the rocks are? Just imagine you're fighting in between the 2 ramps, and you have army units to the left on the high ground, you have army units on the low ground, and you have units to the right. It's very good for managing those kinds of engagements that have very good mouse movement on the sides, or like using the mouse wheel. But at the same time, I use arrow keys sometimes in those situations. Actually, not really. I use arrow keys only when I use Phoenix. I'll use the mouse wheel. You can also just put everything on one hotkey and attack that way. But like, say you need to deal with like one side at a time, it's very good skill set to have.
I want to use location hotkeys. I just haven't messed around with it.
So I set them up a little bit differently. I will let me go to hotkeys. So if I go to global, I go to camera. I use Shift plus F1 to whatever to set them. The default is Control Shift for some of them, I think, or Control. Let me restore it to default. Yeah, so the default is Control F5 for one, but I changed it to Shift F1 instead. It makes it a lot easier to reach things, and the quality of life is just way better. Alright, this is gonna be something that's gonna change your life, okay? These pylons add like nothing to your game. you can do the exact same thing with a single zealot. And you can also have him patrol. It can also remove scouting information from your opponent. Like say if he sends a marine across the map, he's not going to have any backup for it, so he has to rally a whole entire new unit from across the map, which is going to take him 30 seconds of time to get scouting information. A zealot will always do the job 10 times better than a pylon. It's also cheaper. Because say it's just a zealot, right? Sure, it takes away from your army supply, but how significant is the single zealot adding to the value of your army? If you get your pylons killed, and you're at about 150 supply out of 60, and they both die, all of a sudden your supply blocked, and your opponent just dropped you because he's doing a multi-pronged attack, and now he has a fresh new win condition that he didn't really foresee because you can't make units, and now he can base trade you.
Right. That makes sense.
How did this happen?
It's out of position for sure.
Okay. Get it in your mind to always have your army together. That is insane how this happened. Oh my god. How does this happen?
To attack him, and then all my stuff was on the wrong area.
That's insane. I mean, he lost a lot. And you should hold. Okay, so before you move out, do this every time before you decide you're gonna engage. Grab one zealot, press A, left click the path that you want to go. It can remove the marine that could be in the path, which gives you a bigger element of surprise. It will kind of send an alert to your opponent to send more units there. But if he sends more units there, then it's essentially free pickoffs for you. And if you're not all-inning, that's a free resource that you've been given. Like you've taken from your opponent, rather.
Do you recommend to send one the alternate path? Like, should I send one
You
down
should
in the
send
middle?
you should send one on all of the paths if you can. The only reason why that could be a little bit challenging is because it's very APM intensive. And there's a lot of things you have to do in StarCraft. So always try to at least send zealots down the 2 paths or paths that you plan to take on the engagement. Then anything extra is glorified, but make sure you're still attending to what you need to do. So you know he drops you.
This game, I felt like at this point my production was really lacking. I felt like I needed like a lot more gates. Because I just kind of get...
You have plenty of gates. No, you do anyways.
I couldn't spend my money for some reason.
And this could be a cycling problem where you're just not warping in units enough. Yeah, so for about 20 seconds you weren't producing a unit. It's okay, so 9:33. So about 30 seconds you weren't producing a unit. Which doesn't make any sense because you're moving out on the map. Alright. A new condition for you when you're playing, which you're gonna start practicing, is every single time you plan to move out with your army, you warp in first. Because at 9:33, what were you actually doing at 9:33? To be honest, that's important. You're doing with the engagement. But after that engagement, you should be paying attention. You should just press W. Oh, wait.
I realized I had some gates offline too, but yeah.
Yeah, so you should press W, and then you see all your gates. And that would have been at... So right now... it's all about knowing and recognizing where your units are as well. It's a very hard skill set. It's one of the hardest skill sets to learn is, like, where things are moving all the time. Like, where are my stalkers? When did I put them there?
Yeah.
And then you would know...
I got pretty...
I can just jump to the 2 stalkers, position them to intercept that medevac. But you should still be able to just press W right now, and you should see that you have warp ins in about 10 seconds. And you should also see your money, and you should know the importance of actually warping those in. And then you should also see that your gas is very low. So after dealing with that engagement, you need to check all of your bases immediately to make sure your gas is up to date.
And I noticed that a little late though.
Yep.
I'm like, oh shit, and then I go around and...
And then after all of that is done, then you can focus on, like, trying to move out. Because you're playing a macro game. If you don't have your stuff in check at home, then you're just gonna die. You're just gonna fall apart very quickly. It's not like you're on a timer to go engage. Like, if you're on a timer to engage where he's done enough damage to where you feel like, if I don't move out now, I'm gonna die, you could literally just press the F2 button, attack, move across the map, and then go fix everything. But rarely that's gonna be the case. It kinda actually looks like what you did, though, is you pressed F2. And you should be working on 2-2 by now, or have it done. I'm working on 3-3. Ooh. Okay, what do you do from here? Nexus. Dropship. Templar. Good. You see how you're like... your vision seems very awkward sometimes? Like at 12 minutes. Let's look at 12 minutes. So follow along my screen. Or your screen, rather.
I'm on my player camera.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't think you use the mouse wheel, do you? Do you use the mouse wheel to move screens?
I do not.
Practice it. Practice it right now. Just left click it and move your mouse around. Tell me how that feels.
Click the mouse
Wheel.
button? The
Yeah.
mouse wheel button?
Yeah. And then move around.
It doesn't feel bad, I guess. It feels weird, but
You usually use your mouse, don't you?
edge of the screen.
Yeah, so like you move your mouse to the side. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I do.
Okay, that's the least effective method in StarCraft. So
I can practice with the mouse wheel.
yeah, use the mouse wheel for like small things like going from base to base. So practice right now, going from your main to your natural to your third, and trying to center on the nexus.
Up the sensitivity, it feels really slow.
Yeah, get comfortable with it because it's gonna be one of your primary movement methods.
Drag scroll speed?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Switch that to my... Yeah. What do you plan for sensitivity on that?
Depends who you are. If you're me, you use 41%. If you're Stefano, you use like 80.
Unclick it is where you left it on the screen.
So, the order of importance I can tell already with your hotkeys is gonna be learning to use the mouse wheel better. That's gonna save you the most time in game, because by using the side of the map to change screen, it's gonna take a lot away from your engagements. It's also gonna cost you a lot of time, because it's never gonna be centered. It's always gonna feel slightly off, and that's what it looks like when you go to your vision on his side of the map. It's always a bit off. It's never centered, so you're never gonna see fully what you're dealing with. Sometimes you're not gonna see your army.
So using the mouse button centers it right around your mouse, wherever your mouse is.
Yep. So wherever you finish moving is where your mouse will appear. It'll appear at the same position on your monitor. Cause just like watch what happens to your screen when you're moving your army here. You see how choppy it feels a little?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Engaging with your army and microing, do you just click the middle mouse button just to recenter your camera, or?
I use it to get a better view of the overall engagement. So I can see everything that I'm doing with him, and I can kind of tell where my units are. So like I'm constantly using it. But there's some skill sets you like practicing new skill sets takes away from other skill sets at the same time. So for instance, learning, I already went over like what learning location hotkeys does, and it's you kind of stop using the minimap for things. So you don't get used to like looking at the minimap. You lose focus on clicking on the minimap. Like you'll become more inaccurate, or like even rallying units on the minimap becomes less accurate. But at the same time, you save yourself a lot of time, and things just feel a lot more smooth when going and building your buildings and your structure of your build. And honestly, structure of the build is by far the most important aspect in improvement in all of StarCraft.
Okay.
Because without like a structured build, you're kind of playing SimCity, or not really even SimCity. It's just kind of like dicking around in a way, because like you don't really build anything to learn off of. Like you may learn like a few mechanics that will become very, very good, and it will carry you very far. Like you can learn like 2 mechanics in StarCraft. For instance, a Zerg player that does 13-12 and just Ling Floods. Like they get very good at larva injects. They get very good at microing their lings, but they'll never learn how to. They can never go into a macro game because they're not used to injecting 2 queens off of 2 bases. They're not good at injecting 3 queens off of 3 bases. It's all this extra time gets taken away, so they can't manage their army as much. So it's all about like removing the seconds to do things and recognizing what takes us the most time. So by me essentially recognizing that you're spending a lot of time moving your mouse on the sides of the screen, all of a sudden you're going to have about maybe 15 to 20 extra seconds to spend in the game doing other things.
Right. That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah, for sure. And then like say you learn camera location hotkeys, then all of a sudden you're saving an additional 10 to 13 seconds in the game. And then
where do you put your camera location hotkeys?
So the way I do it is I will select a nexus, hold shift for you it'd be 1, so it'd be shift 1. So I create my first hotkey, and then I would double tap it. So I double tap the Nexus hotkey, so I press 1 twice, and then that centers the location, and then I create the camera hotkey.
Which Nexus is which hotkey, I guess?
Well, for me, I put all my Nexus on 4. So every time you build a new Nexus, you add it to the control group, and then you double click the Nexus hotkey twice when you're near the Nexus you want to recenter, and then you set the camera hotkey for it.
1, 2, 3, 4 for locations. Where do you put the locations on the map is what I...
It's all over my Nexuses. I only use it for bases.
Like, do you always have the same base on F1?
Yeah, it would be my first base, always on F1.
Oh,
It would be my second base, always on F2. And
right
then
way or wrong way to do it? Is that the way you should do it? Like,
there's
first,
many
second, third, fourth?
many ways you can use camera hotkeys, and everyone's a little bit different. So a lot of players, well, a lot of Protoss players will do is they will put like a pylon out on the map, and they'll create a location hotkey for it so that they can easily go to it, warp in units, and then rally those units a lot more effectively. And what that does is they recognize, it takes me like 4 seconds to look on the mini map to see where my pylon is, and then click on it and then warp in. But if I create the location hotkey, I'll consistently always go there, and then I could shave off 2 seconds off of the warp in time, so I can do other things on the map, maybe send a zealot to pathway B, a zealot to pathway C, and then those 2 extra things, sending a zealot to pathway B and to pathway C, you can essentially give yourself an extra 15 to 20 seconds in responding to your opponent moving out. And it's a very talked about aspect in when you're learning StarCraft is time as a resource that is invisible at the top right. I want to give an overwhelming thank you to Nero for the raid of 213 viewers. Welcome to the stream, everybody. I'm coaching right now, so you're all welcome to join me. Take a seat. Yeah, so you could also camera hotkey your opponent's bases. I don't really recommend that. It's a little bit awkward that way. Because, like, you don't really want to be shifting your hand. When you manage the keyboard, you kind of want things to be pretty compact and close together. And,
right.
And you want to prioritize the hotkeys that are easier for you to press with things that need a lot of activity or actions. So, for instance, looking at your layout, 2 should be the easiest button for you to press, and then 3 should be just as easy. And then say if you have a hotkey for like harassment units, those should also be very easily accessible. And then anything that's stationary should be at a position on your keyboard that it doesn't make a big deal if you misclick it or not. And what I mean by that is you can never, like, you could set the wrong rally, but you could never like misposition a nexus. You can misplace probes by rallying poorly, but generally that's a very fixable situation. Like you see it immediately, like, because you see like a weird line move out on the map and you're like, oh, I made a mistake here, I can go back and fix it. But for instance, when you make a mistake by putting units on a hotkey that you're not used to, and then you put them on the maps and you want to use them, but then you're also using this other army control group and you click the wrong one, you might misplace the wrong units, or you might move the wrong unit, so all of a sudden you have 3 High Templar in the middle of the map and your army is where you thought your High Templar would be.
Right. Okay.
So the main things from this game, and I feel like it's going to be a consistent thing, is going to be the mouse scroll, possibly learning location hotkeys, and then, well, build structure as well is going to be right with there with the mouse scroll, because we need to begin looking at a build, being able to write responses towards certain situations, because right now the way you structure your build, I have like zero knowledge of the structure of the build, because you're putting Nexus at 18, your Robo is like 20 seconds late, or things are just very, very late in general, or your responses are very weird. Like your response to Reactor Cyclone is 5 gateways, which actually takes away from the production of your units. Or it's going to be overcompensation of production of units when it could be towards upgrades or something more effective towards the mid to late game.
Okay.
But we should look at another replay.
Let's see. Another Terran.
Yeah, we could do Terran. We could also do any matchup.
Let's see.
It's really hard to like. I wouldn't mind seeing another PvT replay, honestly, because it would be very good to see if you like change your opening every game. But if you don't have like any structure, you need to go to like spawning tool and write down a build order and match the supply counts or like the timings. Primarily the timings of buildings is much better, because that's always going to be the same. Like you can never change the time in game, but you can always change the supply, for instance. So writing your build orders in the sense of time is always better.
This isn't a very long game.
That's okay. The main thing I just want to see is like when you build your Nexus this game. Just to see if you do things differently. So you scout after gateway, and then you don't take your gas. So it looks like you have developed like your own form of structure for your build.
I've had gas stolen before, so I try to block him.
Mm-hmm. And what did he do this game? Gas first. So that. Twilight Cyber Chrono. So it's a little bit different this game.
I've been messing around trying to get like Blink to stop drops, but it hasn't been going very well.
Alright, so each game basically looks the same. So I'm guessing you kind of play the PvT the same way, or similar to this every single time you get PvT. So I highly recommend immediately to stop putting your Adept finish in the natural of the Terran player like this. It's gonna die every time, and you'll be lucky to get a SCV kill. Always just go towards the ramp to see if there's like a reactor factory or what you're dealing with exactly. Because remember what I said last game, how they could have like a cyclone without a reactor factory? That's what he has this game. So his push is going to be a little bit different. He actually has 2 factories. It would have been impossible to read this game. But nonetheless, if you see like reactored barracks like this, it's probably... This looks like a Widow Mine drop with Marines. So like I would be expecting like a Marine drop on one side and then Widow Mines coming from another. That would be my hypothesis about this game. But it's not what he's doing. And you have no information on the map. So if you see a cyclone, You need to get any kind of information in the middle map as you can. Like, you need to, the moment you lose your depth, you send a probe to the middle of the map. Just so you know when he moves out, because he's not gonna take some weird path to get to your base. He's gonna grab his units. He's gonna attack, move somewhere on your side of the map, and they're almost always gonna be guaranteed to go down the dead center, and then split off once they get off to your side. So, like, you can't just like send your probe on your side of the map and have him scout there, because there's two different paths you could take. And then the second reason would be you don't really have enough time to respond. Like, you can set up yourself a little bit better. Like, it's better than nothing, but it's not that much. And say if you got like a cyclone in the middle of the map, that means that he's going to be aggressive, whether he's dropping or just straight up attacking you. You know that you can warp in units earlier, or prepare to look at your mini map a lot more in case he's dropping. But right now, like, you have no idea what his positioning is. So, like, if you position your army here, you need to also position a probe on the right-hand side. You can't just, like, have half your army here and then have, like, a clear entrance for your opponent. Like, imagine if he was pushing on the right-hand side here, and he had 2 siege tanks on top of all the Marines. Like, there's no win condition for you anymore. Like, there's no way you can engage that. Maybe if you could warp in like 3 zealots and pull all your probes, there's maybe a chance. But you really don't need these shield batteries in your main either. Like, these could be units right now. You have 4 warp gates, and you're preferring to make 2 shield batteries.
I built those.
Yeah. Units are always going to be better in this case, unless you're building the shield battery in the front. But it's not wrong of you to think that there might be a cloaked banshee, so like if you just left 1, it would be okay, but you never want to. And this, you only died because you didn't have the scouting information. So if we count how much time was wasted without warping in since the moment he moved out, it can give us a much better feel for how your build would respond to what he was doing. You have 4 gateways. 2 of them are ready right now. So say you had a pro patrolling in between these bushes here, right? So he could take the left path or he could take the right path. And your probe's just going back and forth. It would have probably died to this Hellion, but then you would know to send maybe your adept out. Like, if your probe dies, then you send out your adept. And then we'd be sending that out right now. So say your adept meets them right now. You have a warp in ready right now. Let's count how much time is wasted not making units.
A whole extra warp in or 2.
Essentially. So you're essentially engaging with 1/3 of the army you could have had.
Right.
But then your production went to shield batteries as well, so like you didn't even have the money to spend. So this game would have looked completely different with, say, 5 extra stalkers, maybe 6, 7.
I don't think I'm behind. I'm not behind economically. I just didn't get the units.
Yep.
I didn't know he was coming.
And it all came down to just like having a unit on his side of the map.
I should have sent one of my 2 observers over there.
Yeah, that would have been helpful. But you open Twilight, so you're still gonna have to get the information sooner somehow, in any way, shape, or form. You wanna go over one more?
See what I got.
Thanks again for the host, Nero. Hope you all had a good time. I know Nero has some insane coaching. I tune into his YouTube videos and he coaches me from time to time. Coaching is $40 an hour for my stream, or off stream if you prefer.
PvP?
Yeah, we can do PvP.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. This looks like Cloud Kingdom. But it's not.
So I always scout after pylon to see if they're going cannons. I don't know if that's good or bad.
On this map, it's okay. Wow, you're super safe against cannons. Don't be super safe. If you're gonna be safe, just be safe. Don't overdo it. Because this probe will scout everything you would ever need to know right away. Like, you'd see his probe moving out on the map, or... And your PvP so far looks standard. Generally, you want to leave your probe on his side of the map as long as you can. So, generally, you're going to be making units at the same time. So, like, if your units get to, like, halfway production on the gateway, that's when you leave his base with your probe. Because, like, if you leave, then he can make his technology much sooner. So, like, that could be the difference between him having an extra Phoenix compared to you.
About his adept showing up so early.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Wasn't too happy about that.
Yeah, it's game ending. And that's just mini-map awareness. Maybe place your pylon a little bit differently so that it has more of a forward position so you see things a little bit better before it's too late. You can also just not move out with your two stalkers and just leave them in the front. If you're opening stalkers, it's very unlikely you're going to do anything on his side of the map anyways. It's almost always better just to scout and then scout with the probe.
Not even worth attacking with him.
I don't think so, but I usually do just because I like being aggressive overall.
Own me every time. I don't know.
But like, say if you did like leave your stalkers on this side of the map and you're just scouting around, you would have scouted this proxy of his.
DTs.
And then from here, I think you're pretty dead. You're going for charge? Forge. 4 gateways. If you have 4 gateways, you might as well played aggressive. Like, you don't need 4 gateways, like, ever, at this stage in the game. Unless you know he's all-inning. Those Archons actually look sick. And here again, you don't have, like, any information. You're just playing blind. You don't even know if he has an expansion. And a lot of this comes down to just like managing multiple control groups. So this probe that you put out on the map, hotkey it. Get used to hotkeying it and going back and forth between everything you need to do and moving this probe on the map. Get used to it. It's essentially the difference between life and death in like 80% of your games. Because you could probably be like a Masters 2 player if you just got the information right. Or responded sooner. This is so... How do you even end up in a position like this? This is the second time. How does this keep happening? Like, why is his army going... Oh my god. Like, this is so random. And then you should be making... Okay, if you see an army right there, you know he's attacking you. We need shield batteries. Lots of shield batteries. As many shield batteries as you can make. Because you're never going to have enough production in time. So you're only going to be making immortals and producing off of 4 gateways. So anything extra, if you're supply blocked right now, everything goes into shield batteries. Except for a couple pylons, because you need to produce units.
Like the worst supply block of all time.
Yeah.
I bought myself some time with that dropship.
Nice.
Wasn't good enough.
Never make a stalker in this situation. Oh my god, where are these zealots going? He's attacking you! You madman!
Trying to get the sandwich off.
I mean, I like sandwiches too, but...
Didn't help.
Shield batteries would have been huge here. He doesn't really have that much burst damage. He only has 1 immortal. So, like, that would have been very nice. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. So what I want
the
you to...
opening on that wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't bad. The only thing that went wrong was scouting information. Around, like,
Wish I had a game where they go Phoenix. Like, Phoenix always shit on me. Like, what do you do against Phoenix?
Well, if you find me a replay, I'll look over it with you. But generally, having like a pylon in like a pathway, or like in between your bases, like say, can you see that ping?
No, I can't see when you ping.
Okay, so like the base to the right, maybe build like a pylon over there. And then you can kind of feel like how you need to position your units more. Or if he was to like go in between bases, it's going to take him a lot extra time and more actions. So it gives you more time, essentially. You gotta think of like making it more awkward for him and just having enough units per base.
Just get a lot of stalkers, or what?
About 6 stalkers, generally. 6 stalkers would have been good, yeah. But the main things you have to work on are definitely going to be... Build order structure is number 1. You need to develop a build versus Terran immediately, or it's just going to always be very awkward.
Yeah.
And you can get those off a spawning tool. If you have a question about one of them, let me know on Discord, and then I can kind of let you know if it's a good build or not. But just have fun like reading it over and saying how you want to play, because a lot of the builds kind of shapes your style of play. So after having that figured out, you need to work on moving around the map with your mouse wheel. That's a very basic mechanic that should be mastered fairly easily. It's not one of the more complicated mechanics. It's just literally not using your mouse to go to the side of the map.
I'm gonna try doing that. I'm gonna use the mouse. I'm not gonna use the edge of the screen, I guess.
And then the third thing would be getting used to creating units to send on the map, or deselecting units to go onto the map, and just scouting in general. And the fourth thing will be camera hotkeys. I put camera hotkeys at the lowest priority just because it's not mandatory to play StarCraft. But it is still a good skill set to have and maintain. Just for consistency purposes. And then after we have a structured build, we can go into more of how we position things in the game and respond to specific build orders that your opponent throws at us, because I can't give you like that great of a response unless I know exactly what your build is.
Hear ya.
PvP's awful. But if you have no questions, I thank you for your time, and I'm gonna go ladder and entertain
Thank
the
you.
viewers. Yeah. If you have any questions at all, just let me know on Discord. I'll talk to you later, Sai.